Hello, my name is Jim McGillivray and this is the Pipe Box, your source for all things piping. If you find this video useful, please give it a like and please subscribe to this YouTube channel to see more videos like this. We're going to go over a tune today and you can print the music out to this tune by going back to the description of this video on my YouTube channel. You'll see a link to a PDF there. Today I would like to do a Pibroch with you. A Pibroch entitled Lament for Alastair Dearg MacDonell of Glengarry. It's a short and very manageable tune, but it has a very complete structure, it has some challenging technique, and a very attractive melody. Pibroch players know it as the last tune in the Kilberry book, which was published in 1948, though it was published again in the Pibroch Society in Book 14 in 1986. Alastair Dearg was the eldest son of Donald MacDonell of Glengarry, chief of the powerful Clandonald clan. We know him through the Pibroch Lament for Donald of Laggan. His son Alastair was born in 1559 on the island of Lewis on the west coast of Skye. Alastair would have become clan chief had his father not been so long-lived. Alastair died in 1630 and his father remained clan chief for some time after that. Who composed this tune we do not know, but it has stood the test of time and is a very commonly taught and played tune among beginner and intermediate Pibroch players. Before we begin, let's have a quick look at the whole score. What we are looking at here is the Pibroch Society setting of 1986. The tune has 5 parts: the ground, the Gish, or first variation, the Gish doubling, or second time through the Gish variation. Then there is a Taorluath variation, a Crunluath variation, and a Crunluath variation, which this particular setting doesn't show and which is optional. If you look at the bottom of the page at the abbreviations used, you see that there is lots of Pibroch technique in this tune. In addition to the Crunluath and Taorluath, you need to be able to play a hí-haran, a rodan, a dre movement, a dare, and a derado or bubbly movement. So although the tune is short, the technique is fairly demanding and includes Taorluaths and Crunluaths, which bring their own special challenge. Okay, let's hear the ground of Lament for Alastair Dearg, played on a dagger electronic chanter. That was the ground of the Pibroch, the Lament for Alastair Dearg MacDonell of Glengarry, played on a Dagger electronic chanter. Let's have a look at line 1. In bar 1, we have a D throw and a Rodin from C. I want you to pay particular attention, though, to the two B 16th notes in the bar, and I want you to play them fairly snappily, not too long, something like this. So don't elongate those 16th notes too much, especially the second one. If we look in the middle of that bar, we have a B 16th note followed by a C cadence. It's important that the short B be longer than the E in the cadence. Avoid making those two notes the same length. Avoid this. Make the short B shorter than the E. In bar 2, we have a dre movement from C to E, and that's followed by another 16th note that's followed by a B cadence. Same rule applies here. Make that short C in the middle of the bar shorter than the E in the cadence. Bar 2. In the last bar, in line 1, we have a bubbly note, a dedo, followed by a he hanan. So all the way through this line, every bar has a piece of technique that may challenge you. You'll improve this technique by working on it outside of the Pibroch, not just by playing the Pibroch over and over and over again. If you're going to be a Pibroch player, you need to take the technique out and you need to work on it as a separate little project. One thing you may notice as I play this ground and as I play the first line is I like to push out the last note in the bar just a little bit more, almost like a little bit of minor phrasing. He-o, habro, hantiro, bro, tobro, habri, antiro, long, tobro, wambabri, he, habro. Okay, that's a lot to take in for one line of Pibroch. Let's listen to just that line alone, played on the practice chanter. Let's move on to lines 2 and 3, which we'll treat as a musical unit. The first bar in line 2 is very much like the 4 bars in line 1. A couple of pieces of complex technique, a dre movement and a D throw. The next 4 bars are quite unusual as Pibroch goes. It's basically a long string of couplets, dotted 8th notes followed by 16th notes. That continues for 4 straight bars. The greatest musical challenge in this tune is to make these 4 bars musical. We want to avoid just playing them as straight couplets, all the same length. D, O, E, O, E, O, E. That becomes tedious and a little bit boring. We want to vary the length of the long notes and the short notes. The tool that I use to play this variation well is to push out every second long note a little bit more. Let me sing line 2 and part of line 3 with every second long note in the couplet bars pushed out a bit. Ceol, hebidi, hiabi, umbre, he, unti, 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 unto, Hanti unto. I hope you could hear that I was trying to vary the length of some of the short notes and some of the long notes as well. You'll hear that more clearly on the practice chanter. In line 3, bar 2, we have a dare movement from C, which is tricky, and this perhaps brings me to the topic of Pibroch technique and how important it is to be able to play your technique well and virtually automatically so you can focus on music and tone while you play. If you're a serious Pibroch player, I think you would benefit from my technical tutor, Pibroch Fingerwork. Pibroch Fingerwork is very much like my rhythmic fingerwork technical tutor, except that it covers Pibroch technique and the most common Pibroch variations. There are scores of exercises and audio recordings of all the exercises and movements. I've received scores of testimonials on the book over the years, and it seems to work very well for new Pibroch players or for existing Pibroch players looking to improve their technique. In addition to teaching you the technique, it also covers how to read and interpret the Pibroch Society scores. It's available from me or any Highland supplier. Back now to our tune. If we look at line 3, bar 2, right at the end of that bar, we see a movement on D that sometimes confuses people. All that is a half doubling on D, and it looks like this. It's not a difficult movement at all, though it does tend to confuse people. So that's our tour of the ground. Before we move on to the first variation, I'd like to play on the practice chanter for you again, line 2 and line 3, and I want you to really pay attention to how I vary the length of the long notes and the short notes in the couplets. Here's line 2 and 3. Let's now look at the first variation and its doubling. In Pibroch, variations tend to come in pairs, and we have a name for each of the variations in those pairs. The first one we call the singling. The second one we call the doubling. In this particular tune, the first variation and its doubling are a type of variation we call a Gish variation. That's pronounced Gish, pronounced not at all the way it's spelled. So we're about to do the Gish singling followed by the Gish doubling. In the singling, the theme note alternates with low A. So we have a long theme note followed by a short low A. In the doubling, we have a long theme note followed by a second theme note which is short. We get rid of the low A's between the theme notes. You'll see as we play it. When you're playing the Gish singling, and the doubling for that matter, don't make the short notes too long. We want to avoid this. The short notes are fairly short, the long notes are fairly long. Here is how this variation counts. Oh, bumpy, bumpo, bumpo, bumpy, bumpy, bumpo, bumpo. Now, as I play that, I'm going to do something similar to what we saw in line 2 and 3 of the ground. I'm going to push out every second long note just a tiny little bit. I'm going to be very subtle about it. I'm not going to interfere with the rhythm of the variation, but I'm just going to give every second long note a little bit. To bumpy, bumpo, 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 bumpo. So that's the singling. In the doubling, as I mentioned, we get rid of the low A's and we just play the theme notes like this. And we'll play the doubling a little quicker and a little more pointed than the singling, as you will hear in the recording. One thing I ask you to do in these two variations is study the grace notes very carefully. They're a little bit tricky. One thing to remember in these two variations is there is not a D grace note anywhere. It's all G and E grace notes. The pointing, particularly in the doubling, is quite extreme. The short note is right on the back of the long note, so don't be shy about pointing the doubling. Okay, let's listen to the Gish and the Gish doubling on the Dagger Chanter. I will play from the third line of the ground into the Gish singling, and I will go from the Gish doubling into the first line of the Taorluath, so you hear the transitions between the variations. We're about halfway through Lament for Alastair Dearg now, and we will take a break here and finish next time. There are other videos in this series that cover pieces of Pibroch technique like the dre, the dare, the derido, the Taorluath, the Crunluath, and the Crunluath amach. You might wish to look them up as well. Next time we will do the Taorluath, the Crunluath, and the Crunluath amach of Lament for Alastair Dearg MacDonell of Glengarry. Until then, this is Jim McGillivray at the Pipe Box wishing you good piping.